Hey guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the television shows, and then I come over here and I react to them. I watch all the Apple TV shows, the Netflix trending TV shows, the HBO Max, the Peacock, the Paramount, all the reality shows, the Sister Wives, on and on and on. And today I'm going to talk about The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, Part 3, a case that I have obsessively been watching for the last 2 to 3 years. Since the very first part came out, I think it was 2 years ago that it came out, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. I think, yeah, did it come out 2 years ago, the very first part? And part of my interest in this case is that it started about 15 minutes from where I live, and also like 2 minutes from my cousin Caroline, and like 2 minutes from my mother-in-law. They live right in the area where it all happened, Westville, Indiana. And so I was very intrigued with this case because I was like, how did this happen so close to me? And I didn't know anything about it. So last night on the ID channel was part 1 of part 3 of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, which is called, what's the final chapter? The final chapter. It's Friday the 13th, the final chapter. This is the final part. So this is the end. After this, there will be no more talking about Natalia Grace, apparently. And so part 1 was last night. Part 1 was like one extended part last night, and then part 2 is like 2 separate episodes tonight. I was gonna wait until the whole thing was done, and then I was gonna cover it all together, but there's so much that happens in the first part that by the time that I got done taking my notes, I was like, I'm just gonna do this video today. I was gonna start watching the Jerry Springer documentary on Netflix last night and then cover that today and then do the Natalia Grace tomorrow. But I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover part 1 today, part 2 of Natalia Grace tomorrow, and then on Wednesday I'll be doing a Jerry Springer documentary. I know a lot of people want to watch things that I'm watching so that they can like have them watch before I respond to them. So there you go. There's my viewing schedule for the next couple days. I'm also watching The Innocent, the Harlan Coben show, which is the best Harlan Coben show. I've watched, this is my 5th one now of them. It is, I mean, people are talking about Missing You, that's trending right now on Netflix. I mean, The Innocent is unbelievable. It is so good. So I'll also be doing a reaction to Missing You, and I'm also going to be ranking all of the Harlan Coben shows in order of which ones I liked, you know, worst to best. So anyway, let's get into the mysterious case, or the curious case of Natalia Grace. Okay, and I've also made videos about this on my drama channel because last year, the second part of the series came out, and, or maybe the first part came out last year, and then the second part came out like 3 months later. I think that's actually how it happened. But anyway, this case came out at the same time, and I think this is important to note, and why I made a drama video about it on my drama channel, my Peter Mon channel, is that this happened around, this documentary came out, because people didn't understand why I was comparing the cases. This documentary came out around the same time that Gypsy Rose Blanchard was being, not this one that I'm talking about today, this one just came out, but the previous part came out right at the same time that Gypsy Rose Blanchard was being released from prison. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who has also had documentaries done about her, made-for-television movies, and things like that. What I didn't understand at the time, watching all of this unfold, was why Natalia Grace was somebody that people were constantly speculating about, like, isn't she lying? Is she the villain in the story? They were painting a very bad picture of Natalia Grace, whereas Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who, yes, I believe is a victim of Munchausen by proxy of her mother, was part of killing her mother. And so Natalia Grace didn't kill anybody. In fact, in the last episode, or the last part, she talks about how her previous adoptive parents, the Barnetts, had accused her of standing at the end of the bed with a knife, and she said, I couldn't even reach the top of the bed. And she's like, acts like she's like, I couldn't even, like, what was I going to do? Stab their feet? She was like, I couldn't even reach the top of the bed. And so Natalia Grace, who hurt nobody, okay, and has been a victim multiple times over of abuse in multiple situations that doctors have validated, and you know, attorneys and things like that, is painted in this really negative light, and Gypsy Rose Blanchard is completely, you know, lifted up. Both victims of abuse, but treated very, very differently. And I think it's really interesting, and watching last night's episode I really think that a lot of it has to do with the producer's portrayal of Natalia Grace to add suspense to the documentary series. And I'm not sure I'm okay with that, if you want to know the truth. And I'm going to get into what happened last night in the documentary. But I did want to say that first. First of all, I was like watching it, and every commercial on this show is about a new show that ID is putting out, which is called The Curious Case of, this was a curious case of Natalia Grace. And so it's about, like, the one that they're showing that's going to come out next week is about this cult. And I'm like, did they put out part 3 of Natalia Grace just as marketing? Like, did they put this poor girl through all this again? Because you can kind of tell she is not wanting to be in this documentary, at least part 1. She's not wanting to be in this as much as she was wanting to be in the other 2 parts. She just, you can tell, she's just kind of over it at this point. She wants to live her life, and I don't blame her. And I think she's so scared of everybody, and she's been so mistreated by everybody. But I was like, every commercial in between the show was for this new show. I mean, they had like a trailer for next week, The Curious Case of, and so every week it'll be a different case. And I was like, is that why they put out part 3 of this, to get people interested? I mean, do we need to put this girl through this again I don't know. But anyway, you know, the way that it was produced for me is for a suspenseful element that makes you constantly question Natalia's innocence or involvement in everything that has ever happened to her entire life. From her, is she really her age? I mean, I think there's people that are still like, oh, she's a liar, she's not her age. When, like, her dentist came forward and said, no, she's actually that age. They had genetic testing that was done and said, no, she actually is 21 years old as of today, you know? And so it's like, people are still questioning that and being like, she's a liar, you know? And that's why I compared those 2 cases, because it's like Gypsy Rose Blanchard was being lifted up by like everybody, and Natalia Grace did nothing. And both those stories were stories of young women that were abused and that were coming out at the same time, you know? And although they discuss this about her, you know, like being a victim of abuse, because Natalia Grace, if it is 100% a victim of abuse, many times over, okay? And although they discussed it in the show, I mean, you're talking about a girl that has been re-aged, okay? Replaced in multiple adoptive families at this point, okay? Moved here from another country, and and has like been abused in multiple homes, foster care situations over the course of the last 15 years, okay? I mean, in 15 years, this girl has suffered more than most people suffer, you know, in their entire lives. And now she's become like this product for a TV show a little bit. I don't know, it kind of makes me sad. And all the homes that she was in, she has suffered some kind of abuse that's been shown on this documentary. Not to mention the physical pain that she suffers from her dwarfism and the public scrutiny that she's received for her dwarfism. On top of all of that, okay? And this picture that I think is painted, I think that's part of it. I think that's part of why people don't trust her. I think it's people's own bias going into it, looking at her, and then they judge her, okay, for her dwarfism, and then she is held to a different standard than everybody else. I think that has a huge factor into why Natalia Grace is unbelievable in this story. I really think it is. It's a very complicated case, and to add the suspense element to it, it's kind of distasteful of production, if you want me to, how I really feel about it. I mean, when I was watching it last night, I mean, you know, the end of the last season, they left it with her adoptive parents, like, calling the producers and being like, we're done with her. She's gone over the... I mean, it's always about Natalia. Is Natalia believable? Is she the liar? What did she do? It's never really... I mean, the attorney says it sometimes. The DePauls, who, like, are where she's supposedly living in this part of the documentary, other people have said, like, they feel really bad for her. But not really that many... Even the neighbors didn't really jump to her defense, you know? It's like her entire life, she has been, you know, villainized and put down. And so much of it has, if you look at the abuse, okay, and the re-aging, and why she was treated this way, and why she's been taken advantage of, all of it is centered around her dwarfism. And it just is so sad to me that the production team could really focus a lot on that. You know, could focus on what do people that have this same situation, how do they deal with that in the world? Because she goes to live with these people called the DePauls who have, you know, dwarfism as well. And they are maintaining, and they're teaching her a different life and things like that, and how to live a functional life. And she just is, I mean, she is such a victim of abuse. The PTSD is so strong. But yet, like, even last night's episode, it ended on, like, she's a liar and she's not telling the truth about stuff. And they've painted that picture of her ever since she was a very small child. She's only 20 years old when they're filming this documentary, you know? Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who was lifted up for killing her mother because she was an abuse victim. Natalia Grace has been abused 100 times over, and she's sitting there and in this documentary having to defend herself, and they're painting up the suspense to make it like, oh, she's the worst person in the entire world. There's just something to me about it that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So when the production starts, okay, it basically starts where it left off, which was, if you watch part 2 of it, well, if you don't know anything about this case, let me just read you the Wikipedia page on it. Natalia Grace Barnett Manses, who was born September 4th of 2003, is a Ukrainian-born American with dwarfism, who in 2010 was adopted by an American family, the Barnett, but abandoned by them 2 years later, okay? This is the family that adopted her before the Barnetts in Westfield, Indiana, adopted her. Barnett's adoptive parents claimed that Barnett was, no, that is the Barnetts. She was adopted before that, okay? Barnett's adopted parents claimed that Barnett was a legal adult, and in 2012, they successfully sought a court order legally changing her birth year from 2003 to 1989, which meant that at like age 8, she was living in an apartment by herself. Can you imagine your child living in an apartment by themselves, fully self-sufficient at age 8, okay? And was institutionalized, and I talked about this in one of my other documentaries, but she was in a facility here in Indianapolis called Laro Carter, okay? Laro Carter is like it's like what you imagine in like the Halloween movies, okay, of psychiatric facilities. You would not want any family member of yours to be at Laro Carter, okay? I mean, it is like the worst reputation of like a psychiatric facility. And then even there, they had people that worked there that came out and spoke against Natalia Grace and said that she was trying to like hit on guys while she was in there and find a boyfriend and be sexual and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, she was 8 years old. So, I mean, was that a learned behavior? Had she been abused before? I mean, like, the production doesn't really dive into a lot of that. It's just always painting this picture because maybe it's more interesting. So do they add to the public scrutiny of Natalia Grace by doing this documentary? She's never really gotten her whole story out there, even though the last one was called Natalia Speaks. However, though, through an August 2023 DNA test, the health testing company True Diagnostic estimated that Grace was about 22 years old, meaning that she was around 9 years old when her adoptive parents abandoned her. Barnett is the subject of 2 television series, a 2023-2024 series, A Curious Case of Natalia Grace, and then Natalia Speaks for season 2, and the upcoming Hulu TV series, Good American Family. Oh, I don't know about that. But anyway, so that's the background story of it. So this is the third part called The Final Chapter, okay? When you start it, it's Antoine and Cynthia Manses, who are her currently adopted parents, okay, that are also the payees that get her Social Security check, and which is about $800 a month. And at the time, they live in Crawfordsville, Indiana, which is probably about, I think it's like an hour east of Indianapolis. And they must have moved because at the last episode, they were living in Lafayette. So I don't know why they're living in Crawfordsville now, but Crawfordsville and Lafayette is very close to each other. Actually, it's north, like kind of northeast of Indianapolis. So Crawfordsville and Lafayette are close to each other. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm like so caught up with it because it's so close to me. So Antoine Manses, who is a bishop in a fundamental Christian church, okay? They start in a Pentecostal church, which is interesting to me because they show, like, footage of them getting married and stuff like that. Cynthia Manses, like, I mean, I've had friends of mine that grew up in Pentecostal churches and evangelical churches. Like, you can't drink, you can't swear. The women wear their hair a certain way. They have to wear long skirts. Cynthia Manses doesn't follow any of this, and either does Antoine Manses, Natalia's father. And so they're calling, and they're like, they've now moved to Tennessee, and they're like, we've got to, like, deal with her because, or we're done with her because she's got this boyfriend, and he's in the UK that she met online, and so she's wanting to move to the UK and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So production flies to Tennessee. Well, when they land in Tennessee, the Manses are like, oh, we worked everything out. You don't need to film it now. And I'm like, what is going on here? At this point, you can tell that they're kind of using production. Now, I want to tell you something that's kind of interesting about this, okay? In my time of covering reality TV on my drama channel and over here, I have had so many reality stars reach out to me, or I've reached out to them just to say, like, hey, I like this episode or whatever. And then it's like, they are long talkers, okay? They are long talkers, and they will share a lot with you. So does it surprise me to some degree that the Manses, Natalia's adoptive parents, are using production to their own advantage to come in and play mediator? No, not at all. I think that a lot of these specimens of documentaries, reality show stars, stuff like that, they feel like everybody's kind of at their disposal. So that doesn't really surprise me. But then they've worked everything out, kind of, right? And, so it goes in, and she's dating this guy that she's met. Okay, she's 20 years old when the documentary is filmed. I think she's 21 now. And they want her to, so, like, production goes finally, and they're like, they sit down. It's very contrived. Natalia's sitting on the couch between, like, her mom's in the chair, Cynthia's in the chair, her dad's on the couch, Antoine, and she's sitting there. And she's saying everything that sounds good on camera. She looks scared shitless in the scene, okay? And they're like, okay, we're going to have to cut off the internet. You don't get a phone. We're going to have to, like, really break down because we have to keep you safe. And then the mom says that, like, she ran out. They were trying to get this demon out of her because they said because she was, like, talking to this guy online that she had demons in her. And so she ran out of the church vomiting because her dad was trying to, like, exorcise demons out of her. I'm like, this is so weird. Okay, this is so fucking weird. And so then they're like, we want to make sure you don't. They're like, they say that they thought she was either going to be kidnapped and ransomed because everybody knows they have a lot of money. Because they were on Dr. Phil. They live in a trailer at this point, okay? I mean, I'm not dissing trailers, but it's not like they're living in a mansion, okay? They're living in a trailer in Tennessee, and the outskirts of some, you know, like in Nashville, Tennessee. And so they're not like, I mean, they're living in a trailer park, and the mom is like, yeah, everybody knows we have a lot of money, so they're going to put up a ransom. I'm like, from what, Dr. Phil? Supposedly it comes out that they were paid $300,000 to be on Dr. Phil. That seems like a lot of money to be on Dr. Phil. I don't know if that's true, but like that seems like a lot of money for a talk show to pay somebody. So they keep on referring all through about the whole documentary about her Dr. Phil money. So I don't know what Dr. Phil pays to be on a show, but apparently that's that. And then she's like, or they were going to sex traffic her. So they're afraid that, so they have to take her phone away. She can't have any internet access or anything like that at 20 years old because they're afraid that this guy that she's talking to in the UK, like, she might go over there and then he might sex traffic her. I'm not saying that that's an impossibility, and I understand that fear, but it just seemed like taking her phone and doing all this kind of stuff was kind of like, I don't know, it just seemed really like, I mean, she's 20 years old. She can't have access to her phone at 20 years old, and she just goes along with it. And she's like, yeah, you're right. And she apologizes and says she almost left home for this guy. And she's like, no, now I know that that's the wrong thing. And I'm like, you're 21 years old, okay? There are 21-year-old women that have 4 and 5 kids that have been married twice. Like, you're 21 years old. And she's like, no, I know. I almost left my mom and dad. A lot of people leave their home before they're 21 years old, Natalia. A lot of people have lives of their own, okay? A lot of people. The thing is, they don't ever in any of this say, like, she can't physically take care of herself, because that's come up in the last 2 episodes, or she needs surgeries, which they haven't gotten her in 15 years of being, or 11 years of having her. They haven't gotten her the surgeries necessary to take away the pain. They haven't done any of these things, which they prove later in the documentary. And so their focus is really just on keeping her safe away from this guy that might kidnap her, okay? There's no discussion about that she needs to stay with them because she can help, like, they can help her, like, have a more accessible life and, you know, help her with, like, cooking and getting around and things. There's no conversation of that. It's just about her keeping her phone away from her. So it's not like they care about her, you know? And Antoine says that she betrayed them, is what he says, by talking to this guy on the phone. And he punishes her. No phone. The lawyer says, so there's this lawyer. I've now seen this lawyer. She must be like the TV lawyer because I like her. I like her a lot. But she's now been in like 10 TV shows, true crime documentaries that I've seen. So she must just make the rounds. Does she have an agent? I need her agent. If you're the attorney and you're watching this, can you reach out to me and let me know who your agent is? I need your agent. Okay, so anyway. So, the lawyer says that she's been silenced. The reason why they're taking her phone away and doing all this kind of stuff is because they're silencing her. And they're not letting her speak to the producers by herself, right? Why? What are they afraid of, she says? Or what are they afraid of people talking about or knowing? What are the Manses hiding if they don't want anybody to know? But then she goes, after all this, they show that she's still talking to her boyfriend. And so, like, she's lying to production because she's still talking to her boyfriend after she said she's learned all of her lessons, right? So she was just saying what she needed to say for production from her parents, which means that she's scared to some degree. And the thing is that when she's in front of them, she says what she needs to say, right? But then when she's away from them, she says something different. It's all rehearsed. It's very, very unnatural. And this is, I think that what is so sad about this is that the attorney kind of gets into this a little bit, but she's really the only person that ever kind of addresses it. This is really the mentality of a victim of abuse living with her abuser, okay? And, you know, we throw these terms out like Munchausen by proxy, Stockholm Syndrome without really understanding these, you know, what these terms mean and things like that. When you are like, this whole idea of being like loving your abuser like is a very natural response to people that have been in abuse for a very long time. It's where shame and guilt comes for abuse victims. And they don't discuss any of that. There's no education about the abuse that Natalia's gone through because they won't really even acknowledge it to some degree. The producers won't. It's all just about getting the story, getting the suspenseful story. And it's really letting Natalia down is really what it is. It makes me very, very sad because when you step back, you're like, this is a real human being, okay? That I don't think we really know the real story even after watching all this. And so her responses of telling the Manses, who could possibly be abusive to her, one thing, and telling production something else or boyfriend something else is very natural of how an abuse victim acts. And the only person that says anything about it is this attorney. Then the DePauls step into the picture, okay? Well, this is the other thing I said, is that she's been used by everybody in her life from birth. So she doesn't even know what's up anymore. She's just doing what she needs to do to get by. Everybody since her birth has absolutely used her for gain, okay? And so she just, I mean, she goes back and it talks, the last season they went back to her like their orphanage that she was in and they were like looking around the possible abuse that happened there. I mean, she's literally been used and abused since she was born. Why do we think that she would act any different than this, okay? You know, nobody's talking about getting her mental health treatment. Nobody's talking about getting her psych evaluations, getting her checked out. Nobody's talking about any of that kind of stuff. Getting her the help that she needs. You know, we have all these reality shows that are paying for weight loss surgery. Could we maybe pay for Natalia Grace, the documentary producers, or some reality show out there to get her the help that she needs? I mean, I don't understand it, you know? So then this family, okay, and they also, the parents both have dwarfism, and so does their daughter Mackenzie, is the DePauls. And their names are Vince and Nicole DePaul. And they were in episode, or season 1, and Natalia used to go stay with them because they originally wanted to adopt her from the Barnetts. But the Barnetts stopped, wouldn't let them adopt her anymore because they were like asking too many questions, and they were basically accusing the Barnetts of abusing Natalia and all this kind of stuff. So they know that she's in pain and they're like praying for her and they like want to help her out and stuff like that. And they like go in, this Nicole, the mom, she starts talking about how the Manses have kept every penny from Natalia, that she has no savings. The Manses have guardianship, so if she wants to leave, all they have to do is get her institutionalized. So they start doing this thing where they basically threaten her, right? Like, they say through text messages to Natalia, like, are you, like, freaking out? Are you having, like, you know, like, are you, like, having a mental breakdown? So that there's, like, a paper trail that they have guardianship over her. So if she leaves, to keep their SSI check, to keep their social security check that they get from her. They have like 20 kids that they're getting social security checks from. To keep hers, okay, they can have her institutionalized. If she's institutionalized, the thing about that is, if she's institutionalized, social security check would go to the institution. I don't think it would go to the Manses anymore. But they would have her when she got out, and it would scare her enough to go. So her boyfriend and the DePaul's mom, Nicole, are now communicating, and the only way that she has to communicate is through educational apps on her computer, okay, like Duolingo kind of thing. And she can only send one message at a time. The links they go to talk to her are like, it's bizarre, okay? It's one message, each name is changed and new. And so Nicole DePaul, the mother, is talking to her boyfriend, who I think is going to end up being shady, but he is trying, and he and Nicole are trying to get her out of the Manses house, okay? So they're communicating her. Now Vince, the dad, is over it. He's like, we do not know this girl. We haven't seen her in like 15 years. She has been through so much trauma. We do not know her anymore, okay? We don't know who she is. We don't know what she's bringing into our house, on and on and on. And Nicole says, you know, all the accusations, and I have a feeling this part was edited a little bit, but she says, I mean, we believe that the accusations aren't true, but what if they are true? What if they are true that an 8-year-old girl was trying to stab her parents? I mean, okay, can we go back? Then the psych evals and all that kind of stuff should have been happening 15 years ago, and that's what the documentary should have been about, okay? Getting Natalia Grace the mental health treatment that she needs. It shouldn't be about all the suspenseful aspects of it, and now we have another family playing in the suspense of it, and I don't think that they wanted it portrayed that way. It was weird when I was watching that part because it was kind of edited out. It's like they were asking her questions, and then they used her answers to make it sound like she was saying something. I don't know. because she's very protective of Natalia Grace. Now, I think that she and her daughter have come out after this has been put out and spoke, because a lot of people are saying that, like, the documentary portrays that Natalia was like total hell at their house, and they're like, that's not true at all, is what I think they've come out and said. But she says, what if the accusations are true? Then we're putting our family in danger, is basically what her husband says. But they're going to help her they're going to help her escape. And so they got to go to Indiana or to Tennessee to help her escape. And Vince, her husband, says, on paper, I'm telling you, I don't think this is a good idea. So Nicole and her daughter, Mackenzie, they go and they drive from New York to, I think they fly there actually, but they go from New York to Tennessee to go rescue her, okay? And she's supposed to come out of this Apostolic Church at 7:05, but the Manses don't even show up. They're 30 minutes late. So they finally, she comes out, she gets in the car, and she's like, oh my God, my dad's gonna freak out, and she's like, I'm gonna break my mom's heart. It's so weird. Like, she wanted out so bad. And then she, like, basically, like, okay, I don't even really know how to explain this, but, like, so I've been sober for 30 years, okay? I've had quite a few friends of mine that have been incarcerated or have gotten out of treatment, and as soon as you pick them up, like, they are on your phone like nobody's business. It's no longer your phone for the next 2 hours, it's their phone. And they're texting all their family and friends. Okay, that is Natalia Grace in this car. She is on the phone calling her boyfriend, oh, I love you so much, you're my boo, I can't wait to see you, and all this kind of stuff. Then her mom is calling. I mean, it is this mess of trouble, and her mom is going off and texting her. I mean, it is just so much. And then so her mom, Cynthia's like, texts her, and she was like, Cynthia Mans texts Natalia and says like, oh, so you left? Like, I'm like really worried about you. I'm your mom. I love you. Do I still get your social security check? Can I still be your payee? And Natalia's like, yeah, I still want you to be my payee. And Nicole's watching it all go down, and she's like, how are you going to pay your bills at our house? Like, you begged us to come help you escape. And this is the thing, right? You're talking about a girl that has the emotional development of about a 5-year-old, okay? So she's already talking about how she loves her mom, she loves the Manses, she goes back and forth, okay? I mean, it's so like, I mean, it doesn't even begin to dive in to all that has happened and how badly this girl's mind has just been fucked with, right? So now Nicole is concerned how they're going to, she's like, we're okay, but we're not well off. Like, we need her money for her to pay her bills for herself and stuff like that. So then Cynthia and Nicole, they get into it on the phone, okay? Because, like, Nicole's like, I don't want to take this phone call. Cynthia starts going off on her and all this kind of stuff on the phone. And she goes, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. That was my favorite part of the documentary. Then Nicole says that she's brainwashed because she keeps on going on. Natalia says she's going to miss her family. She's going to miss her family so much. And she's like, you begged us to come and get you, but now you're saying you're going to miss them. Then they drive back 16 hours to New York. She moves in with the DePaul. She gets a tour of the house. She looks really different in the scene. Natalia looks really healthy and really good. I mean, when she was with the Manses, she looked like she hadn't taken a brush to her hair or even some shampoo in the last 2 months. When she's at the DePauls, I mean, she's sitting there being interviewed, and I'm like, that's a different Natalia. Like, she looks fantastic. And then for Christmas, they give her $100, but she says she wants it on her Cash App. Well, the Cash App is tied to Cynthia Mans, okay? And so Cynthia is the one getting the money, not Natalia. And Nicole's like, why are you still giving her money? Okay, she's getting your social security check. I'm trying to give you $100 to go buy some stuff with. Then she gives her a list of all this shit. She's like, these are my favorite clothes. This is the food that I want. Can you DoorDash this? Can you DoorDash that? I'm like, oh my God, like, they have just pulled this into their, I mean, this is the money train that is not, I mean, it's never going to stop. And then, but she's giving all of her money to her parents, okay? Her social security benefits are still going to her parents. And then they're like, who is the real Natalia? Like, who is controlling her? Is she controlling herself, or her parents? Like, who is controlling her? And Natalia says that she goes in and they interview her, the producers, and she goes, the tough time, it's now like a month later, okay? The tough time that her and her parents, the Manses, went through brought them closer together, and they're now closer than they ever were. And I'm like, baby, you wanted to escape from that home because they were being so abusive to you, okay? And they were letting you keep your money. They wouldn't let you go anywhere. Now you're closer to them than ever. Like, I'm so confused by this. And Nicole is confused. And the producers are confused. And everybody's confused. But this is possibly how an abuse victim would really act. But we don't have any experts in there talking about it except for this attorney that has toured every documentary and reality show across the country. She's the only one talking about it. And then, but then she goes in and she told Neil, her boyfriend, that her parents were exploiting her for money and bashing them and begging them to be rescued. But now she's acting like they're these perfect parents and that she's missing them. It just makes no sense. And then Nicole confronts her. This is going to stop in just a second. Hold on. Oh my God, I can't believe it. See, this is why I had to make one video per episode. Nicole confronts her about if she's going to go back, and Natalia gets mad and says she didn't want that brought up. Because she's like, Nicole's like, well, if you go back, will they let you date guys and stuff? And she gets mad. She looks at production and she goes, I told you I didn't want this brought up on camera. And I'm like, this is so weird. So now Natalia is controlling. The Manses asked for cameras to be shut off. They're shut off. Natalia asked for, I mean, are we really, what's the truth here? What are we really seeing? Like, this is such a contrived documentary at this point. And so Nicole thinks that she's brainwashed, and then Natalia asks for the producers to cut filming. Then producers have now Natalia's up in her room. She ain't coming out of her room, okay? And the next episode, they show about what she's doing in her room and why she won't come. They paint such a nasty picture of Natalia Grace. No mental health specialist. No psychiatrists giving their expert opinions on this. They just want to have the mom outside the room listening to her have phone sex or whatever she's doing in her room. And they think that that's okay to paint this really horrible picture of Natalia. I mean, it's like they paint such a bad picture of Natalia Grace just for the suspense element. It's disgusting. Producers have all these clips of people talking about the Mans and what horrible people they are. And Natalia didn't want to watch it, but she said that the DePauls could, and then they could tell her what was on it. So then all these people come out, and they're talking about how the Manses adopt all these kids for money. And it's this guy and his kid watched, Cynthia Mans was the babysitter for his son. Who, they interview the son, who's like 6, but they just like don't show his head. And, but anyway, then they later come out at the very end, after they interview this guy for like 20 minutes about how Cynthia Mans wouldn't let the kid had to pee in his pants, they wouldn't let him go to the bathroom, and she was whipping with him a belt and all this kind of stuff. And then he's saying all this stuff about the Mans, how Antoine Mans like confronted him in the parking lot and said that he called the Division of Family Service. This is so small town Indiana, I'm telling you right now. And all this kind of stuff, and what a mess it was. And then the attorney's like, there are a lot of truth to what he's saying. And then she goes in this whole thing and she goes, he is a registered sex offender though. And then they kind of just like shake right all over that. I'm like, okay. And then they go right over that. They don't go into that at all and explain it. Then they have this woman, Anna, this poor woman. The Manses have her 2 children. They've adopted her children for the Social Security check, probably. And she sings out their praises. She says, she's like, her name's Anna. She's like, I'm Cynthia's best friend, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. She's like, I will never talk bad about Cynthia. I love Cynthia. Cynthia is the best mom in the entire world. I mean, she's like, Cynthia, you know, like, she just is the best woman in the entire world. And she and her husband got married at the same time the Manses got married, okay? But now they're divorced. And so, I mean, this woman, it breaks my heart for her, okay? Like, you can tell she is so scared of something. I mean, these people are all of them scared of the Manses. I don't know why, okay? I don't understand it. Except for all these people, the Manses have their kids. And Natalia Grace, they have guardianship over Natalia. They still have guardianship over her. And she knows that, right? She's not stupid. She's like, I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm forced to go back and live with these people and then they're beating the shit out of me. And because I got in a documentary and said this stuff and they still have guardianship over me and I have nowhere to go. Like, I don't think Natalia's stupid, right? So this woman comes out and she's telling all this kind of stuff and defends her, and she says their strictness was never anywhere near abuse, and she says she made the best decision for her kids when she had them adopt her. She doesn't say why she did that or anything like that. She just goes in and says that. But before the interview, like 15 months before, she said that they were violent with Natalia. She tells the producers they were violent with Natalia and that there was stuff between Natalia and Antoine that could send him to prison or jail. And I'm like, what is that? And she's contradicting absolutely everything that she said on the phone in the interview. She paints completely 2 different pictures of the Manses. Her ex says that she's scared because her kids are there, okay? And she doesn't want something bad to happen to her kids, which I totally understand that, right? Maybe not be in the documentary then. Except for that, Cynthia probably said, you're going to be in this documentary, you're going to make me look like I'm the best. Her ex talks about his daughter being there, then says that Anna, and then the attorney's talking about how Anna is backtracking. She says she knows that the Manses know how to silence people. Anna's ex says that he saw Natalia being beaten by Antoine with a belt in the basement to the point that she was like bawling and crying in a corner in the basement. And I'm like, did anybody report any of this? Like all these years, all these people that have witnessed this abuse of Natalia Grace, is there a helicopter? helicopter. Are they out there coming to get me because I'm doing it? Is that the Manses? Anyway, I'm the Mons, not the Manses. My last name is Mon, not Mans. Anyway, did anybody report any of this shit? I mean, at one point, Cynthia Mann says that Division of Family Services was out there like 15 times. She blames it on Natalia and says it because they said that Natalia was doing shit to the other kids. If that were the case, they would have removed Natalia from the home, okay? My question is, why is Division of Family Services, or CPS, Child Protection Services, out there 15 times at their house when you have 20 adopted kids? Like, what is going on there in that house? And so he said that Natalia stayed because she's scared of them. Then the producers asked Natalia on camera, they said, if she or any of the other kids were beaten, and she says, I don't want to talk about it. But then at the end of the episode, it shows her, she's walking away from the house, and Cynthia is yelling out of the house, and she goes, you better get back here! You want me to get the belt? And Natalia looks at the camera, and she just looks scared, and she starts, like, this weird smile. And I'm like, and that's how they end it. So, of course, they end it again on the suspense element. I mean, it's a good documentary, but it's like, I feel like, to some degree, but they're continuing to put this girl through all this trouble, you know? It's like, I don't know, it just kind of makes me sad. And I don't think we're ever going to really know who the real Natalia is. So, tomorrow, after I watch the last 2 parts tonight, I think it's really 3 parts. Like, last night was like 1 long part, and then tonight's 2 separate parts. I don't know, but I'm going to watch the rest of it tonight. And then I'll be back over here reacting to it tomorrow. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you then. Bye.